The Rivera family's small, cozy home sat at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac in a suburban neighborhood. The house was modest but filled with warmth, its walls adorned with family photos, children's drawings, and the occasional paw print smudge. Outside, the backyard was a haven for two dogs who had once ruled it with boundless energy: Bruno, a dignified German shepherd with a graying muzzle, and Charlie, a golden retriever whose playful spirit had left an indelible mark on the family. But now only Bruno remained, his once vibrant black and tan coat streaked with silver, his movements slower but still deliberate. Bruno had been a part of the Rivera family for over a decade. He was more than a pet. He was a protector, a confidant, and a silent witness to the family's joys and struggles. Isabella, a single mother in her late 30s, often joked that Bruno was her second child. He had been there for her during the hardest years, raising Matteo, her now 10-year-old son, while juggling work and the endless demands of parenthood. Bruno had always been a steady presence, his calm demeanor a counterbalance to Charlie's exuberance. But lately Bruno had been acting strangely. It began on a quiet autumn evening. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of fallen leaves and wood smoke from distant fireplaces. Isabella had just finished tucking Matteo into bed after their nightly ritual of reading a chapter from his favorite book. She lingered in his doorway for a moment, watching him sleep, his dark hair tousled against the pillow. Downstairs, Bruno lay curled up on his favorite rug by the fireplace, his chest rising and falling in a slow, steady rhythm. Isabella smiled as she passed him, running a hand over his soft fur before heading to the kitchen to tidy up. That night, as the house settled into silence, Bruno stirred. He lifted his head, his ears twitching as if listening for something only he could hear. Slowly, he rose to his feet, his joints creaking slightly with the effort. He padded to the doggy door, nudging it open with his nose, and slipped into the backyard. The cool night air ruffled his fur as he made his way to the far corner of the yard. There, he pushed against a loose board in the fence, a spot he had discovered weeks ago, and squeezed through. The neighborhood was silent, bathed in the soft glow of streetlights. Bruno trotted down the familiar streets, his powerful frame moving with purpose. The next morning, Isabella noticed the muddy paw prints on the kitchen floor. "Bruno, did you go out again last night?" she asked, kneeling to scratch behind his ears. Bruno wagged his tail lazily but offered no explanation. This wasn't the first time he had escaped. Over the past few weeks, they had found him wandering the neighborhood early in the morning or noticed the fence board out of place. They had tried everything to keep him home, locking the doggy door, reinforcing the fence, even setting up a baby gate, but Bruno always found a way out. "Maybe he's just restless," Isabella thought aloud as she wiped the muddy prints from the floor. "He's getting older, and his mind might not be as sharp as it used to be." But deep down, she felt there was more to it. Bruno wasn't the type to wander aimlessly. He was a German shepherd, a breed known for their intelligence and purposefulness. He had always been a dog of routine, his days marked by predictable patterns: morning walks with Matteo, afternoon naps in the sun, and evenings spent curled up by the fireplace. His recent behavior was anything but routine. Isabella's thoughts drifted to Charlie. It had been almost a year since they had lost him, and the house still felt emptier without his golden fur and wagging tail. Bruno had taken Charlie's passing hard. The two had been inseparable, their bond forged over years of shared adventures and quiet moments. After Charlie's death, Bruno had become quieter, more withdrawn. He spent hours lying by Charlie's grave under the old oak tree in the backyard, his ears drooping and his eyes filled with sorrow. Isabella sighed, her heart aching for her loyal companion. She knew grief could affect animals just as deeply as it did humans, but Bruno's nightly escapes were something else entirely. There was a determination in his movements, a sense of purpose that suggested he was searching for something or someone. Determined to uncover the mystery, Isabella decided to follow him the next time he slipped away. She waited until the house was quiet, then slipped on her coat and shoes. Bruno, as usual, nudged open the doggy door and made his way to the fence. Isabella followed at a distance, her heart pounding as she watched him trot down the street. The neighborhood was still, the only sounds the rustle of leaves and the distant hum of a passing car. Bruno moved with confidence, his path familiar as if he had walked it 100 times before. He led Isabella to the park, a place they hadn't visited in years. He stopped under an old oak tree, one that looked strikingly similar to the one in their backyard. Isabella's breath caught in her throat as she realized where they were. This was the park where they had often taken Bruno and Charlie for walks. It was also the place where Charlie had loved to play fetch and roll in the grass. Bruno sat down by the tree and let out a soft whine. Isabella knelt beside him, tears streaming down her face. She remembered now. This was the spot where Charlie had collapsed on his last day. The park had been his favorite place, and Bruno had been coming here every night to be close to his brother. To understand Bruno's behavior, it's important to go back to the beginning, to the day Bruno and Charlie entered the Rivera family's lives. Isabella had adopted Bruno and Charlie when Matteo was just a toddler. She had been struggling to make ends meet as a single mother, but she knew she wanted a dog to help protect and comfort her son. When she visited the local animal shelter, she was drawn to a pair of dogs, a playful golden retriever puppy and a German shepherd with a calm, watchful demeanor. "They're brothers," the shelter volunteer explained. "They came in together, and we'd love to see them adopted as a pair." Isabella hesitated. She had only planned on getting one dog, but the thought of separating the brothers was heartbreaking. After some thought, she decided to take both dogs home. She named the golden retriever Charlie and the German shepherd Bruno. From the very beginning, Bruno and Charlie were inseparable. They ate together, slept together, and explored the backyard together. Charlie was the outgoing one, always ready for an adventure, while Bruno was more reserved, content to follow his brother's lead. But their bond was undeniable. They communicated in a language only they understood, their tails wagging in unison as they played or simply lounged in the sun. As the years passed, Isabella and Matteo watched their dogs grow from playful puppies into loyal companions. Bruno and Charlie were there for every milestone. Matteo's first day of school, family outings to the park, quiet evenings spent reading together. They were more than pets, they were family. When Charlie turned 12, he began to slow down. His once boundless energy faded, and he spent more time napping than playing. The vet explained that Charlie was simply getting older, and there was nothing they could do to stop the natural aging process. Isabella and Matteo did their best to make him comfortable, showering him with love and attention. One evening, Charlie didn't come when called. They found him lying under the old oak tree in the backyard, his breathing shallow. Isabella rushed him to the emergency vet, but it was too late. Charlie passed away peacefully, surrounded by the family who loved him. The loss was devastating. Matteo, who had grown up with Charlie by his side, cried for days. Isabella struggled to hold back her own tears as they buried Charlie under the oak tree, the spot where he had loved to rest. Bruno, however, was the one who seemed most affected. He refused to eat for days and spent hours lying by Charlie's grave, his ears drooping and his eyes filled with sorrow. Over time, the family began to heal. They framed photos of Charlie and shared stories about his antics, keeping his memory alive. But Bruno never seemed to fully recover. He became quieter, more withdrawn, and his escapes began shortly after. One night, Isabella decided to follow Bruno. She waited until the house was quiet, then slipped on her coat and shoes. Bruno, as usual, nudged open the doggy door and made his way to the fence. Isabella followed at a distance, her heart pounding as she watched him trot down the street. Bruno led her to the park, a place they hadn't visited in years. He stopped under an old oak tree, one that looked strikingly similar to the one in their backyard. Isabella's breath caught in her throat as she realized where they were. This was the park where they had often taken Bruno and Charlie for walks. It was also the place where Charlie had loved to play fetch and roll in the grass. Bruno sat down by the tree and let out a soft whine. Isabella knelt beside him, tears streaming down her face. She remembered now. This was the spot where Charlie had collapsed on his last day. The park had been his favorite place, and Bruno had been coming here every night to be close to his brother. The next morning, Isabella shared what she had discovered with Matteo. They were both moved to tears by Bruno's unwavering loyalty. From that day on, they made it a point to visit the park with Bruno regularly. They would sit under the oak tree, sharing stories about Charlie and letting Bruno take his time to sniff the familiar scents. Bruno's escapes stopped after that. It was as if he finally felt at peace, knowing that his family understood and honored his connection to Charlie. The experience brought Isabella and Matteo closer together, reminding them of the profound bonds that exist between loved ones, both human and animal. In the years that followed, Bruno grew older and slower, but his love for his family never wavered. When he passed away, they buried him next to Charlie under the oak tree in the backyard. It was a fitting resting place for two brothers who had shared a bond like no other. Word of Bruno's nightly journeys and his unwavering loyalty to Charlie spread through the neighborhood. The story touched the hearts of many, and soon, the park became a place of pilgrimage for dog lovers and families alike. A small plaque was placed under the oak tree, commemorating the bond between Bruno and Charlie. It read, "In memory of Bruno and Charlie, two brothers whose love knew no bounds. May their story remind us all of the enduring power of loyalty and friendship." Isabella and Matteo were overwhelmed by the outpouring of support from their community. Strangers would stop by to share their own stories of beloved pets, and the park became a symbol of the deep connections we share with our animal companions. Years later, Matteo, now a young man with a family of his own, decided to honor Bruno and Charlie in a special way. He wrote a children's book titled The Oak Tree Brothers, inspired by their story. The book became a bestseller, touching the hearts of readers around the world. It told the tale of two dogs who were inseparable in life and in spirit, and it reminded children and adults alike of the importance of love, loyalty, and remembering those we've lost. Matteo often visited the park with his own children, sitting under the oak tree and reading the book aloud. It was his way of keeping Bruno and Charlie's memory alive and passing on the lessons they had taught his family. The story of Bruno and Charlie became a cherished memory for the Rivera family and their community. It taught them about the depth of love and loyalty that animals are capable of, and it reminded them to cherish every moment with those they hold dear. Years later, Matteo, now grown and with a family of his own, would tell his children about the senior German shepherd who escaped every night to visit his best friend. It was a story of love, loss, and the enduring power of connection. A story that would live on in their hearts forever. Even now, if you visit the park on a quiet evening, you might feel a sense of peace under the old oak tree. Some say they can hear the faint rustle of leaves, like the whispers of two brothers reunited. Bruno and Charlie's story lives on, a testament to the unbreakable bonds of love and loyalty that transcend even death.